speaker, Mr. Navin Bishnoi, the India Country Manager and AVP of Compute and Custom Solutions at Marvell India. Mr. Navin oversees business operations and leads compute and custom ASIC design for networking, processor, cloud, automotive, and AI/ML applications. Navin is a key figure in India's semiconductor industry, contributing to EDA standards and industry associations. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Navin Bishnoi.
Good afternoon. I know there's a tough time right after lunch with the session being late, and we'll try to see if we can maybe make it faster, do it fast, but speaking on a topic which I don't know in this audience how much of you are up to date on all of that, right? So much has changed in the last few years. If you realize, or at least I can relate, if I go and introduce myself as saying Marvell Semiconductor, people used to ask me saying, what's Marvell and what's Semiconductor? Thankfully, in the last 5 years, things have changed. People know what is semiconductor. And many of them knows Marvell also, which is a fabless design company that works in the area of data center, automotive, enterprise, and carrier networking side. I'm not going to talk about what the numbers are. Arvind has told you, he's the expert of it, about what's the opportunity that exists in front of all of us, that the whole digital footprint and according to the electronics and the role of semiconductor into it. I'll go into what my area of expertise is that if we want to go and do the design, what happens there and what are the places, opportunities or challenges where MSMEs can come and play there. Can you help me with the slide change? Okay, yeah. So I'll just briefly. Okay, I'll keep talking while they fix it, right? So I'll talk about semiconductor design versus manufacturing. There's a big difference between these two so that you can understand that. And this is a very basic picture that we explain to a lot of, when we go to college, when we go to somebody who's not from semiconductor, that how a chip design is done. And it's usually, you can understand it as an hierarchical flow that when we talk about any chip, for example, the phones that you have in your pocket today, they have billions of transistors in it. So when we have to go and do that design to do billions of transistors and sitting on a computer to do that design, we can't do that in a flat way of dealing those many billion transistors. So what we have been doing in the last 2 decades is that we have started building a lot of building blocks in the design which we can start repeating. Right? And then those blocks, when that blocks repeat 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, depending on the functionality that it represents, it ends up representing that billions of transistors that we want to fit in to make a chip which goes into an automobile or a cell phone or anywhere else, right? And then those building blocks, many often you will hear about technology component of it. You need to know the electrical properties, physical properties. Also to be able to do the physical simulation, electrical simulation, reliability, and many other analysis, you need EDA or the automation tools to be able to do that simulation and figure it out that will this chip or the solution function when it's placed on the field. So that's the building blocks that you have. Once you have that building blocks, using those building blocks, you start making the commonly used building blocks in the design. That's what we call as an IP. So there's a lot of IP footprint that exists. We can make digital IP, analog IP, the IPs which are used for computing, the IPs which are used for networking, the IPs which are used for storage. So we make those IPs. And then finally, when we have all these building blocks, we can connect together, mix based on the functionality, and then put up a chip together. So this is what is the design side of the world that goes through. Similarly, we have the manufacturing way, and if I have to explain in a very similar hierarchical way, you do need the chemicals, materials, and wafers and all of that because that's the building block for the final physical manufacturing. But along with that, you need those equipments as well on which the processing happens and the final chip comes out. Once you have that manufacturing, the building block done, you have the fabs, the big building blocks which he was talking about, which at least needs a $3 billion investment. You go manufacture that, so you come out, you will see a round wafer where there are many chips on that, and then you saw that, you package it, you test it, and then you have the final chip that you take it to the board or the EMS companies and get the final system out. So that's the manufacturing, I would say, hierarchical flow that we have. So now between these two manufacturing, Sanjeev already talked about what's happening in the government side. I'll talk something about the design because that's what I've done for at least last 2 decades that we have, right? I told you one of the building block is the IP development. That's one piece which is very common for someone to pick it up. It's IP, you can license it, you can sell it. And that's the main brain around all the chips or the products that we do it, right? That's a good place for any one of you to start to figure out which IP is most commonly used, not available, or can be commercialized, and that becomes a building block for any chips that we do there. So that's one very good example that exists in front of us. Similarly, we said that we need a lot of tools and solutions to be able to visualize those billions transistors on a chip, be able to simulate them, be able to figure out what will happen when this is on the field, be able to say how will it work when it is placed in Antarctica versus whether it is placed in a desert in Rajasthan or Dubai, right? So we need to do a lot of those simulations, and we need those EDA CAD tools. And again, there is always a need to do it faster. The whole new machine learning algorithm coming in and saying is that, hey, I can enable this optimization better. And that's where all of these fits into the EDA tool and the software world. Building on that, then the next one is the actual design process. If you know a specific niche market, definitely there's a need for a custom chip there. It could be an Indian use case, whether it is around the IoT and the smart city, the automotive, the industrialization that's happening, and in many other use cases. There might be a need for a custom chip, and those fabless designs could be the starting point also from a semiconductor perspective. Not just this, then, and the other industry that exists, and I'll let Bishwadeep talk about is the, it's in the next, but we continue to the design and then we go to the testing and validation. Again, you will hear the terms like OSAT and ATMP. They are the testing, packaging, and then the validation, where you put the chip onto a board and run it through some of the functionality test and see whether it's working fine as it was architected, implemented, and manufactured there. The next one is design services, where a lot of design gets outsourced to the design houses, design services houses, and then I'll let Bishwadeep talk about it. And last but not the least, all of these needs a lot of talent pool as well. At any time, you will hear us talking that India is forecasting that more than 80,000 engineers needed in semiconductor field in the next 5 years. While we are having a lot of engineers coming out, many of them either are not trained on semiconductor or are running towards the fancy jobs in either finance, consulting, computer science, and not towards the VLSI side. So again, there is a lot of opportunity to partner with academia to either build IPs, to do some joint research projects, or to just do the talent pipeline for the semiconductor industry. So those are the opportunities. Challenges are very similar, what Sanjeev has already talked about. The semiconductor field has a huge barrier to entry because of the cost involved in many of these things, and hence the timely credit, the infrastructure need that's there, the raw materials. There is always a challenge that's coming out. Thankfully, we have policies, we have the supply chain coming in, so some of these is getting lowered, but these are some things that you should be aware of as we are building this. And similarly, the other two things I talked about is the manpower. Even whenever you want to go, whether in the testing validation or something, there's always a shortage of manpower. So be aware of that. And in general, how do you keep up with the technology pace? Because the moment you thought you know what IP to build or what tools to solve or what kind of chips I want to test and validate, the technology is changing so fast. New technology is coming in, new needs are coming in. The digital footprint is growing, so that moves very fast. So you need to keep up with that so that you can go and change every year, every 18 months or every 2 years. So those are some of the challenges that I could think of that you should be keeping in mind if you are thinking of semiconductor as a place to be. In summary, if you say the digital infrastructure is the uplift, while the big birds is AI, automotive, but there is a lot of other niche areas, which is India use cases, and maybe similar to India, the other geography use cases that exist for semiconductors to be built, either from an IP EDA or all the way from design and others. Many ways to contribute, and just to remember that this will always need a lot of collaboration from many parties. It cannot be done alone. It's a long supply chain cutting across geographical borders. Across the science, it does involve physics, it does involve chemistry, it does involve metallurgy, it does involve computer science, electronics, and many of them. So it does need a collaboration across many parties to go do design, manufacturing, test, and then be able to get the solution out. So that's my summary. I'll be here around after the session to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.